Hello, and welcome back to Dragon Age Origins Ultimate Edition. We're going to jump into the codex and get caught up. The first one we're going to read is The Magus Collective. Despite the loyalist grasp on the Magus political community, many libertarians and equestrians have begun to see eye to eye with respect to the Chantry's role in a mage's daily life. Growing numbers of mages, particularly those whose magic never stays from the Maker's mandate, feel that the Chantry constant oversight is a burden upon their creativity and their very will, and one that hinders their ability to do their work. These mages, along with a number of hedge wizards who work their arts outside the Chantry influence, have formed a shadow guild of sorts, a mages collective, wherein members can submit requests that have them seen to without judgment. This collective mages to work in a relative secrecy. These members discreet and their clients anonymous. As of yet, this collective has seen no sanction from the Templars, and there has been no sign that its members are practicing magic of which the Maker would not approve. Still, practicing magic outside the influence of the Chantry is a dream for some and a dangerous notion for others, and many believe that this is only a matter of time before the veil of secrecy is lifted and the Magus Collective is brought to a swift and brutal justice. From the Treatise on Magic and Politics by First Enchanter Josephus. The Scrolls of Bane Sotar. To align with the power of the Fade is but the first of many steps. Further is to align the mind of the Fade's rules and find the ties between the realm of dreams and the realm of flesh. There is a true power of magic. The flesh and the mind are inseparable, and therefore lies the power to influence and control minds. Below the text are indecipherable runes and stains of blood and ink. Many speak of the sanctuary of the mind to those who know the true power of blood. This is foolishness. The mind is no more sacred than the knee, the small toe, or the ear. It is man's organ of reasoning, nothing more, and a true reasoning requires connecting to the rhythm of the blood, the tireless pounding of life. Interpret this, and even the mind is yours to control. Below the text is a diagram of a blood magic ritual in progress, with no notion or description. Maleficarent's regrets. I won't go back. Let them hunt me and dread finding me. But you, Mels, should not live this life. It would please me if you found a life in the Circle Tower. I left a few things there, mostly stolen from the enchanters. Sell them to fund a new path. The catch is in the study area. Middle alcove. Goodbye, Belgrus. The letter of termination. The letter of termination. My dear apprentice, I have sent this carrier with this note to officially end your period of apprenticeship. I harbor you no ill will, for despite your complete incomplacency, you have failed to do lasting harm to myself or my work. Sadly, I will not have a chance to witness your floundering attempts at improvement. When you return from your current errand, your apprenticeship will be over. Now hurry. I have dire need of supplies I sent you to procure. Sincerely, the Mage Tharister. I mean, I wouldn't help the dude. I'd be like, my apprenticeship's over? Well, these are now mine. But okay. He can do what he wants. Shattering. A creature frozen or petrified by magic, as from a spell, purify, or cone of coldness, It is a vulnerable state, subject to shattering if excessive force is applied to just the right spot. A critical hit from any weapon may suffice, and the spell Stone Fist and Crushing Prison have been known to achieve the same effect as well. Berwick's letter. Berwick, we need your eyes and ears in Redcliffe. Stay in the village, keep your head down, and watch the castle. Report any changes, and you'll be paid well. You'll be well paid, and you'll be well paid. A letter in Berwick's possession. Correspondence interruptions. A collection of embarrassing personal communications between the spoiled wealthy and their objects of appreciation. My darling Reginald, I burn for you, and because of you, please use the enclosed tincture if our love is to endure. Sarah, you are filthy, a beast. Such depravity I have never been forced. I have never been forced to suffer. How words are so Latin when they leave your lips is beyond decent imagining. Madam, I love. Sir Augold, I don't know if that's the right way. Promises of pride. Alderin will show us the way. Finally, recognition within the circle and scorchful eye of the Templar. We will not be shunned. Be ready. Enchanter Gravid Libertarian. I have spoken to him directly. His intentions are that we will demand the Templars' withdrawal. I do not know that I am willing to follow, but I will be present to hear his argument. Enchanter Forsen Equestrian. Madness. I doubt blood will be used to you. Madness. I doubt blood will be of use to you if it is flowing down the tower steps. Step away from this folly before it consumes us all. Enchanter Louvain, Loyalist. The call is made. We will stride out of here with pride in our steps, regardless of the outcome. This is for the good of the circle. Alderin will see to it. Libertarian, Ronus. So we're adding on to Alistair. The Earl's wife, Isolde, suspected the reason her husband took an interest in the welfare of a servant's child was that Alistair was Earl's son. She insisted that the boy be sent away to the Chantry. Asdol's suspicions were unfounded. However, Alistair was not Earl's son, but King Merrick's. Eamon sheltered the boy to hide his existence from Queen Walwyn, Eamon's sister. Connor Grurin. I feel like I'm sleeping, but I guess I'm not. While most of the Banes and Arls of Ferelden cart their children with them to the land's meet in the interest of eventually marrying them off, Connor had spent his entire life at Radcliffe, and it's hardly surprising the child possessed the gift of magic. By law, he should have been taken to the Circle of Magi at the first sign, depicting his claim to Redcliffe. Instead, the boy was kept out of public view and his magic hushed up, with disastrous results. All mages are beacons that attract attention of fade spirits. Because of this, they are trained and tested by the Circle to ensure that they can withstand attacks from the malevolent fade. Creatures that seek entry into the waking world. Untrained, Connor drew the attention of a powerful demon that tore the veil asunder. With aid from the Circle, he was freed from the demon's power. Connor will be sent to the Circle Tower, where he will no longer pose a danger to the innocents. The Circle didn't eat us. Gregor. What are we adding on to his? So, Knight Commander Gregor. With the destruction of the circle, it's hard to imagine where Gregor will go next. But I thought they said that they were going to repair the circle. Arl Random Howl. It appears it will be civil war after all, despite Darkspawn. Pity. The Arling of Armathena winds among the Sinus northeast coast of Ferelden. The waking sea is known for its temper, and the storms that sweep in from the warmer northern waters are sudden and brutal. There are the lands of Redham Howl. He was born during the occupation, and like many of the nobles at the time, joined Prince Merrick's rebels. He fought alongside young Bryce Cusland, future tyrant of High Ever, and Leonis Brinland, future Earl of Southreach, at the bloody Battle of White River. It was the most chaotic defeat of the entire occupation, from which only 50 rebellion soldiers escaped alive. Although he was decorated for valor by King Merrick, Howell's abrasive manner has earned him almost universal dislike amongst his peers. First Enchanter Irving. He died when the tower became overrun by demons. The fate of Ferelden's Circle is now in question. That is interesting to me because, like, why did we see his death? I don't remember in the cutscene seeing him actually dying. Aerosol Asal. For the one who delivers the sacred ashes of Our Lady will have the esteem of Redcliffe and all the riches in it in my power granted. The Arl of Redcliffe was the source of a constant trouble for Emperor Revile. During the occupation, it was rumored that since each new report has sent the Emperor into a fit of violent rage, his court has been taken to poisoning messengers before they could deliver their accounts. Asal's family was the 10th to be given the difficult task of governing Redcliffe, and since most of the previous Arls had either been murdered by their Banes or beheaded by the Emperor, they did not approach the job with a great deal of enthusiasm. Asal met Emin, and not realizing he was the rightful heir to her father's domain, and quickly became smitten with him for being part of the resistance. Never mind that it was her family he was resisting. Perhaps a bit too romantic for her own good, she insisted upon staying behind with Emin when the rest of her family was driven out. When her only son began to show signs of possessing magic, Asal tried to cover up, knowing that he would be taken from her by the circle if found out. She hired an apostate mage to tutor him in secret, little knowing that her tutor was being paid to poison her husband. Emin fell ill, and Connor desperately tried to use magic to save his father, magic that attracted the attention of a demon. The Circle of Magi were finally called in, almost too late, and Connor was freed from the demon's power, though the damage to Redcliffe was severe. I have to say, why does it keep saying that the Circle of Magi came? I'm a Grey Warden, and we use blood magic. So, did I mess up the storyline by going back and still using blood magic? Was there another way we could have done it? I don't know what I'm missing here. Leilana. In a cloister away from the fuse and the fury of the cities, I found peace, and it was that stillness I could hear the Maker. A lay sister of the Chantry who can beat the stuffing out of trained mercenaries would be notable enough, but one who also claims to be sent to fight the Darkspawn by the Maker himself is unusual, to say the least. She joined Alistair and Katie Jane in Lothering, insisting that she would prove useful. There's more to Leilana than had ever been apparent at Lothering. However, she spent much of her life as a bard in Orlais, a minstrel, assassin, and spy employed by the noble of Val Royelet in their elaborate game of intrusion. Logain Mactier. He then returned to Durham and declared himself the regent to his daughter, Queen Honora, demanding that Ferelden follow him against the Darkspawn, upsetting a great many of the Banes. His action sparked a civil war. Logain's supporters found themselves fighting their neighbors who blamed Logain for the death of the king, as well as those who simply wished to take advantage of the power vacuum. Sten. Either you have an inevitable memory or a pitiful life to know nothing of regret. The northern island are remote, lush jungles that harbor cities rumored to be the most extraordinary ever built. There are the lands of the quarry, lands that no foreign eyes ever see. Only the stories of the 3 exiled marches waged against the giants have reached the south until the arrival of Sten. The stoic giant in the cage was surely the strangest thing the people of Lothering had ever seen until the blight struck. Wayne, I will not lie motionless in bed with coverlet up to my chin, waiting for death to claim me. Wayne's talent became apparent early on, particularly her skill at healing magic. She was well liked by all her mentors and was recognized as an extraordinarily gifted student. Even the Templar who watched her could not deny she represented the best the circle had to offer. She was an intelligent young woman who possessed a quiet confidence and maturity beyond her years. She spent many years mentoring apprentices within the circle, and her peers thought so highly of her that she was asked to be the first enchanter, Irving's successor, but she refused, saying that she had no desire to work in the upper echelons. When word reached the tower of King Callan's call to arms, Wayne volunteered to go to Ostagar. She escaped the battle with her life and stayed to search for survivors and tend the wounded. When she returned home, she found that Aldrin had gone on ahead of her, spreading the lies that the wardens had betrayed Callan and urging the city to support Logain. Wynne immediately spoke to Irving and told him the truth. Irving then confronted Aldrin about his falsehood, prompting Aldrin to use terrible measures to take over the tower. While trying to save what was left of the circle, Wayne was cut down by Katie Jane. Oh, man. Oopsies. Make us sound like the bad guy there, right? Benzrin Armene. The crows send their regards. Between the Tevinter Imperium, Ravini, and the free marches sets the nation of Antivy. Although it possesses few resources of its own, Antivy's location makes it the center of trade in the north and the capital. Avinti city is the wealthiest in the world. Avinti has virtually no army, and monarchy is too weak to support one. Most Aventis would be hard-pressed even to name the current king, as the true power lies in the hands of a dozen merchant princes, each with a personal army and each locked in a constant struggle for power against all the others. Anyone would think then that the Aventi would be a ripe target for evasion by one of her neighbors. But even the quarry leaves Aventi alone for one very good reason: the House of Crows. The most effective, most feared, and most expensive guild of assassins in the world called Aventi their home, and their reputation alone defended the borders. Sophia Dryden, Ferelden's light and her most brilliant jewel. Nothing on this earth can ever quench her fire. Azrael Sophia Dryden was the young Arlen's rival for the throne of Ferelden. Dryden was a strong and charismatic leader with much support from the Norn. When Arlen finally won the crown, Dryden refused to relent. She pushed her claim, was caught, and accused of treason. Her sympathizers continued to support her. However, in order to appease them, Dryden was spared execution and forced to join the Grey Wardens instead. Dryden survived the joining and dazed the Grey Wardens at Soldier's Peak with her leadership skills and charm. She eventually rose through the ranks to become the Warden's commander of Ferelden. Before Commander Dryden, the Grey Wardens were seen as a relic of an older time, and an unnecessary drain on nobles' coffers. Dryden thought with her political connections reinvigorated the Wardens and rapidly increased their numbers. In the meantime, King Aldrin proved himself a devious king, willing to go to brutal lengths to silence his opponent. Aldrin's reign of terror grew worse with each passing year, and some of the Banes approached Commander Dryden in the desperation, begging her to intercede. She agreed, and thus was the rebellion against King Arlen born. Arlen learned of the rebellion and took steps to end it. He publicly suspended all tithing to the Grey Wardens and declared that they were no longer welcome in Ferelden. Some of the Wardens, mindful that they were supposed to remain politically neutral, felt disgraced by Dryden's involvement in Ferelden politics, and she felt disgusted by Dryden's involvement in Ferelden politics and left her side even as the king's forces lay siege to Soldier's Peak. The siege took months and ended with the death of Sophia Dryden. From the personal file of Levi Dryden, merchant. History of the Drydens. In the years following the siege of Soldier Peak, all those who carried Dryden name were hunted by King Arlen's forces. Our noble Dryden name was smeared, and all the lands and holdings belonging to Drydens were sieged by the crown. The king feared that the rebellion started by Sophia would be kept alive by her loyal friends and family, and anyone with connections to Drydens suffered greatly. It is little wonder, then, that the few remaining Drydens found themselves with no allies and nowhere to turn. Tobin Dryden, Sophia's brother and guardian of her young son, had no choice but to flee Ferelden. Tobin brought passage to Antfi on a merchant vessel and traveled under the name De Rocher. Once in Ative, Tobin set about building a new, quiet life for himself and his nephew. He started a small business and eventually made a name for himself as a trader. The Durocher merchant family perspired, and the name Dryden was almost forgotten. However, 1815 blessed. Silvery DeRoche uncovered old documents belonging to Tubin and pieced together the family's history. In her pride and perhaps in her naivety, Sylvie reclaimed the name Dryden and returned to Ferelden. King Ireland's lies dead, and Dryden name lives on. Our family has survived, even thrived, since the death of Sophia Dryden. The nobles of Ferelden may still spit on Dryden's name, but we Drydens know that Sophia Dryden was greater than them, almost a queen, and a hero of the people of Ferelden. From the personal files of Levi Dryden, merchant. The Chasmed. The Chasmed Wilders have lived in the Kakari wilds since the first wars of the Alvari drove them southward a millennium ago. According to their own lore, they had always been a forest-dwelling people that adapted quickly to their new home. Game and fish are plenty in the wetlands, and the Chasms thrived. For a time, they and the hill-dwelling Averas were true threats to the northern lowlands. The Tevinter Imperium had arrived and was hard-pressed to keep back the wave of invasions from the south and the west. The fortress of Ostagar was built specifically to watch for chasmed hordes venturing north of the tree lines. It was not until the legendary warrior Hefter soundly defeated the Chasms in the first hand of the Divine Age that the question of their ability to contest the Lowerlands was settled permanently. Today, the Chasms are considered largely peaceful, though their ways are still primitive compared to our own. In the Kakari wilds, they live in strange-looking huts built on stilts or even built into the great treetops. They paint their faces and are split into small tribes run by a shaman. Like those amongst amongst the Avaras, there are many tales of those shamans having learned their magic from the witches of the wilds. Witches that inspire as much terror as they do awe and gratitude if there is no definitive proof they exist, in particular the tale of Flemeth, the greatest witch of the wilds, celebrated amongst all the tribes. While there is no way to know how many there are in the wilds today, few travelers that pass through the forest tell of chasmed eking out and experience even in the frozen wetlands of the far south. One can assume that should the Chasm ever organize themselves once more, we might have reason to fear them in Ferelden. We ignore them at our peril. For Ferelden Folklore and History by Sister Pachine, Chantry Scholar. History of Ferelden, Chapter 1. Ferelden as we think of it now did not exist before the Exalted Age. Instead, the valleys were divided into dozens of old Amari clans. They warred constantly with one another over land, honor, and allegiance to the freeholders. And now, on the notable occasion, the name given to a favorite Mabari. And then in the 33rd year of the Exalted Age, Callan Theron became Terran of Dalaran, and everything changed. Most of what we knew about the founding of our nation comes from an old song that the bards passed down through the ages. The songs are filled with wild exaggerations and outright lies, but this hardly differs from the scholarly paper of some of our contemporaries. There is no agreement amongst poet or scholars on how he did it, but Callahan gained the support of the Circle of Magi, and they crafted for him a suit of silvery white armor that, by all accounts, repelled both arrow and blade. Callahan led his army across the valley and captured Redcliffe, one of only 3 men who ever successfully laid siege to the fortress, and presented himself to the base of the land meets as their king. The poets tell us that every lord knelt before Callahan without question. The fact that he attended the land meets surrounded by ash warriors and loyal mages of the circle is generally omitted from the ballads, however. From Callahan came a line of Theran kings and queens who reigned uninterrupted until the 44th year of the Blessed Age. When the Ortesan invasion came, the rightful king was forced to flee Durham, and for 70 years a puppet sat upon the throne. For Ferelden, Folklore and History by Sister Petrine, Chantry Scholar. Lake Callahan. The waters of Lake Callahan are steeped into legends. The Avari people saw that it was once the site of Balinas, the mountains which stood at the center of the world, from which Korth, the mountain's father, surveyed the earth and skies, but it was destroyed in the battle between Korth and the serpent Natharum, leaving only a vast crater behind it. When the Lady of the Skies saw that Balinas was gone, she wept, and her tears filled the crater, making the lake. The Tevinter believed that the waters of the Lake Callahan were blessed by Rizikal, god of mysteries, and those that drank from were granted special insights. This was why they built the great tower on the island in the middle of the lake, hoping the power of the lake would aid their magical research. But most of us know the legend of King Callahan, which gives the place its name. It is said that Callahan Theron spent a year and a day in the Tower of Magi. Each day he drew a single cup of water from the lake and carried it to the Fermeti at the top of the tower. By magic, each cup of water was forged into a single ring of mail armor the circle gave to Callahan. In that armor, made from the lifeblood of the land itself, no blade could strike him, no arrow pierced him, so long as he stood on Ferelden soil. From Thetis, Mystery and Legends by Sister Petrine, Chantry Scholar. Apostates. It is not uncommon for the neophyte to mistake apostates and maleficarent as one and the same. Indeed, the Chantry has gone to great lengths over the centuries to establish that this is so. The truth, however, is that while an apostate is often Malficar, he need not be so. A Malficar is a mage who employs forbidden knowledge such as blood magic and the summoning of demons, whereas an apostate is merely any mage who does not fall under the auspicious of the circle of magi and therefore the chantry. They are hunted by the Templars, and often they will turn to forbidden knowledge in order to survive, but it would be a lie to say that all apostates began that way. Historically, apostates became such in one of two ways. There were either mages who have escaped from the circle, or mages who were never part of it to begin with. This latter categorically includes what we tend to refer to as hedge mages, those with the magical ability out in the hitherlands, who follow a different magical tradition than our own. Some of these hedge mages are not even aware of their nature. Undeveloped, their abilities can express themselves in a variety of ways, which the head mage might attribute to fate, or will, or to another being entirely, depending on his nature. Some of the traditions are passed down from generation to generation, as well as the so-called witches of the Chasmed Wilders, or the shamans of the Avara barbarians. No matter how a mage has become apostate, the chantry treats them alike. Templars begin a somatic hunt to bring the apostate to justice. In almost all cases, justice is execution. If there is some overriding reason the mage should live, the ritual of tranquility is employed instead. Whether we of the circle of magi believe the system is fair is irrelevant. It is what it is. From Patterns Within Form by Helen, first enchanter of Starkhaven, 880 blessed. The Black City. No traveler to the Fade can fail to spot the Black City. It is one of the few constants of the ever-changing place. No matter where one might be, the city is visible, always far off, for it seems that the only rule of geography in the Fade is that at all points are equal distant from the Black City. The chant teaches that the Black City was one that was once the seat of the Maker, from whence he ruled the Fade, left empty when men turned away from him. Dreamers do not go there, nor do spirits. Even the most powerful demons seem to avoid the place. It was golden and beautiful once, so the story goes, until a group of powerful magister lords from the Tevinter devised a means of breaking in. When they did so, their presence defiled the city, turning it black, which was perhaps at least the least of their worries. From beyond the veil, spirits and demons by enchanter Nerdriddle. We're going to leave this episode off here. There's a lot more to read still, so we're going to pick up another episode of the Codex next. But I hope you guys are enjoying learning, and I will see you guys in the next episode. Thanks for watching.